Have you ever felt, exactly on January 1st, that wave of euphoria, that absolute certainty that this year will be different, that everything will change, only to find yourself 3 weeks later on a Tuesday evening on the exact same couch with the same fear and repeating the same patterns you swore to destroy? If you nodded, I have hard news for you. It's not a lack of willpower. You're not lazy. The problem is that you're trying to install new software, your dreamed of 2026, on hardware that's completely inflamed. Most people start the new year with a fatal neurobiological error. They focus on adding habits, adding goals, adding kilometers. But your brain doesn't work that way when it's overloaded. Imagine for a moment you're a hot air balloon. You can ignite as much fire as you want. You can shout your wishes to the universe. You can read all the self-help books. But if you don't cut the ropes of the sandbags holding you to the ground, you won't rise a single meter. The only thing you'll achieve is burning out the engine. Neuroscience is clear. For the brain to create new neural pathways, what we call change, it first needs space. It needs to detoxify. If you enter 2026 carrying the 3 black suitcases we're going to talk about today, I guarantee you, and this is not an opinion, this is biology, that your year will be an exact photocopy of the previous one. You'll replicate your fears, recycle them, and look for dopamine in the wrong places again. But if you dare to let go, if you have the courage to eliminate these 3 invisible parasites that daily drain your prefrontal cortex, this video won't just be content, it will be the turning point of your life. Are you ready to hear the uncomfortable truth that nobody tells you about why you're stagnating? Because what you'll discover today is not how to do more, but how to stop being your own obstacle. We live in the culture of more productivity, more followers, more money, more goals. We've been sold the idea that the new year is an accumulation race. We sit down on December 31st with a blank sheet and write an endless list of things we'll do. But stop for a moment. Think about it from pure logic. If your house is full of old, broken and dusty furniture, what good does it do to bring in a new third-rate sofa? It won't fit, and if you force it in, it'll be dirty in 2 days. Neuroscience and clinical psychology agree on something fascinating that we often ignore. Real transformation doesn't happen through addition, it happens through subtraction. In biology, there's a process called synaptic pruning. The brain doesn't just become more efficient and mature by creating connections, but by eliminating those that no longer serve. It literally cuts away the superfluous so the signal can travel faster. If your brain didn't eliminate the old, it would collapse from the noise. You're the same way. You're that hot air balloon we talked about. You have an inner fire, that motivation that makes you watch this video, that spark that wants a better life. But you have a fundamental physical problem. You've accumulated ballast in the basket for years. These sandbags aren't just bad habits like eating poorly or not exercising. They're much more subtle and dangerous. They're thought patterns, invisible loyalties, and emotional needs that, without you noticing, keep your nervous system in a state of constant alert. Each of these bags chronically raises your cortisol level, the stress hormone. And when you're poisoned by cortisol, your prefrontal cortex shuts down, the part of the brain you need to plan this successful 2026. It disconnects. That's why you fail. Not because you don't want to change, but because you're biologically programmed not to let go of this weight. Your brain interprets these sandbags as safety. What we're going to do in the next few minutes is identify these 3 specific ballasts. They're 3 defense mechanisms that may have once helped you survive a difficult childhood or a traumatic moment, but today in adult life have turned into your prison. If you stay until the end, you won't just give them names, you'll understand how to hack your own system to let them go without your brain panicking. Because I promise you something, the version of you that achieves their dreams in 2026 is not a version that does more things. It's a lighter version that has stopped fighting against their own shadow. Let's start cutting the ropes. Here the story gets interesting, and at the same time, most of us crash into an invisible wall. You need to understand something fundamental about the machine you carry on your shoulders. Your brain is not designed for you to be happy. Your brain is designed for you to survive. The biology of survival. And in the evolutionary dictionary of your mind, survival is synonymous with conserving energy and predicting the future. It's surely happened to you. You decide that 2026 will be different. You feel that wave of motivation, that initial dopamine that shouts to you, "Yes, I can." But after a few days, you feel an almost painful physical resistance that pushes you back to the familiar. You feel tired, you invent excuses, you sabotage yourself, and then comes the guilt. I'm a disaster. I have no willpower. I failed again. I want you to let go of that guilt right now. It's not a moral failure, it's a biological protection mechanism taken to the extreme. Let's enter the engine room of your mind, delving into what we call the basal ganglia. This primitive structure at the base of your brain is the conductor of your habits. Its function is to automate as much as possible so your prefrontal cortex, the conscious, intelligent, and creative part, doesn't have to waste glucose thinking about how to tie shoes, how to drive, or how to respond to your mother's criticism. The basal ganglia love repetition. They love the familiar. When you repeat a behavior, an emotion, or a thought for years, even if it's negative, like feeling inferior or seeking validation, your brain creates a solid neural highway, paved and high speed. It's efficient, it's easy, it's energetically cheap. Now imagine that on January 1st, you try to change that. You try to create a new path through the jungle of your mind. You have to pull out the machete and cut the undergrowth. That requires monumental effort. Your brain, which is a stingy economist with energy, recognizes this new behavior and lights up all the alarms. Here comes homeostasis into play. In biology, homeostasis is the tendency of any system to maintain internal balance. Think of the thermostat in your house. If you set it to 21 degrees and open the window in winter, the heating will work at full capacity to return to 21 degrees. Your system works the same way. You have an emotional thermostat configured. If you've lived for 10 years with a stress level of 80%, with an installed feeling of "I'm not enough" in your operating system, that's normal for your brain. That's your home. The paradox of change. When you suddenly start treating yourself well in 2026, setting boundaries, feeling peace, your brain will recognize that peace as an anomaly. It will interpret it as something unknown and therefore potentially dangerous. And here comes the great paradox, the Greek tragedy of our biology. Your brain prefers a known unhappiness over an uncertain happiness. Read that again. Your nervous system feels safer in the fear, sadness, or toxicity it already knows, because it knows how to navigate in them. It knows which chemicals to secrete. It has the cellular receptors ready to receive that daily dose of cortisol and adrenaline. But happiness, real happiness, is unexplored territory. It's an empty map. And for a primitive brain seeking safety, the empty map is where the monsters live. That's why it's so hard for you to let go. The 3 things I'm going to ask you to eliminate aren't simple bad habits. They're defense mechanisms. They're rusted armor. Imagine a soldier who was sent to a terrible war when he was very young. To survive the bombs, he had to put on heavy armor made of hardened steel. That armor saved his life. It protected him from shrapnel. He learned to sleep with it, eat with it, walk with it. The war ended 20 years ago, but the soldier still wears the armor. There are no more bombs, but he still feels the weight. Now, this armor that saved his life prevents him from hugging his children, prevents him from running freely through the field, prevents him from breathing deeply. It crushes his spine. It rusts and poisons his blood. You are that soldier. The three things you need to eliminate in 2026 are fragments of that armor. You created them at some point in your past, perhaps in your childhood, perhaps in an abusive relationship, perhaps in a hostile work environment to protect yourself. Perhaps you adopted the victim role to get a little attention and affection when you felt invisible. Perhaps you became addicted to external validation because at home they only valued you for your grades or your appearance. Perhaps you learned to postpone your happiness, the waiting room, because having hope was too painful when they then disappointed you. Your brain coded doing this means surviving. The battle within. But today, on the threshold of 2026, the context has changed. You're no longer in that war. However, your amygdala, that little smoke detector in your emotional brain, hasn't received the memo. It still reacts to life as if you were in mortal danger. Every time you try to take off the armor, every time you try to eliminate these three blockages, your amygdala screams down, "Careful, you're naked, they'll hurt you." And it floods you with fear, a visceral, irrational fear. It sends you anxiety, doubts, intrusive thoughts. It does everything possible to make you put that cold metal back on your skin. This is the main conflict of your life, the battle between your past self that wants to keep you safe in the cave of the familiar, and your future self that knows there's light, air, and life outside the cave. What happens is that on a biochemical level, you've become addicted to your own limiting emotions. Dr. Joe Dispenza and other researchers explain this very well. Your thoughts generate emotions, and these emotions are chemical cocktails that travel through your blood. When you've thought for years, "I'm worthless," your cells have gotten used to drinking this chemistry of unworthiness. They have specific receptors for it. When you try to change and think, "I'm valuable," you cut off the supply of that drug to your cells, and your cells literally go into withdrawal. They send signals to the brain, "Hey, where's my dose of suffering? Give me my dose of victimization." And your brain generates negative thoughts to provoke the emotion and satisfy the body's chemical addiction. It's brutal, isn't it? It's a fight against your own biology. The good news, neuroplasticity. But here's the good news, the light at the end of the neurobiological tunnel. Your brain also has a magical property called neuroplasticity. You're not a tree, you're a system in constant evolution. You can rewire your mind, you can dismantle the highways of pain and build paths of peace. You can teach your basal ganglia new routines, and you can calm your amygdala so it understands that different doesn't mean dangerous. To do this, we must first identify with surgical precision which these three pieces of armor are that weigh the most, these three mental traps that disguised as safety are suffocating you. It won't be pleasant to separate from an identity. Even if it's a painful identity, it feels like a small death. You'll feel dizziness, you'll feel emptiness. The ego will kick like a child whose favorite toy is being taken away, but this emptiness is necessary. The universe has an unbreakable law. Emptiness always tends to fill itself. If you're full of the past, the future doesn't fit. If you're full of fears, love doesn't fit. If you're full of external noise, your inner voice doesn't fit. For 2026 to be your year of expansion, you must tell your brain with firmness and compassion, "Thank you for protecting me for so long. You did a great job keeping me alive when I was small or when I was hurt, but now I'm an adult. Now I have resources. I don't need this armor to survive anymore. Now I want to live." We're about to name the three enemies. Observe them well. Don't judge them, just acknowledge them. Because as Carl Jung said, what you deny subjugates you, what you accept transforms you. And until you don't make the unconscious conscious, the subconscious will direct your life. And you'll call it fate. Prepare yourself, because we're going to dissect the first suitcase. And I warn you, it's the heaviest of all, because it has your name written on it. It's the trap of your own identity. Suitcase 1. Eliminate the victim identity. If you've come this far, it's because a part of you senses that the truth hurts, but the lie slowly kills. And what we're going to do now is open heart surgery without anesthesia. We're going to look directly into the eyes of the first two burdens that prevent you from moving forward. Prepare yourself, because your ego will try to defend itself. It will tell you, this doesn't apply to me. She doesn't know my story. My pain is special. Listen to that voice, thank it for its opinion, and then tell it to be quiet and take notes. 1. The first suitcase. Eliminate the victim identity of your past. This is the most seductive and dangerous trap of the human psyche. We all have a story, an internal narrative we tell ourselves about who we are and how we got here. The human brain is a meaning-making machine. It needs coherence. For that, it uses autobiographical memory and a specific brain network called the Default Mode Network, or DMN. This network activates when you're not doing anything specific, when you're daydreaming. It's the voice in your head. The problem arises when this narrative crystallizes around a wound. I'm this way because my parents divorced. I'm afraid of success because I was bullied at school. I don't trust men because my ex cheated on me. From a neuroscientific perspective, this has a fascinating and terrible explanation. Your brain has become addicted to your own trauma. When you remember a painful event, you're not rewinding a tape, you're reconstructing the memory in real time. And each time you bring that memory into consciousness, you activate the amygdala and hippocampus and release a microdose of the same stress chemicals you felt in the original event. When you repeat this every day, your biological identity merges with these chemicals. You reach a point where you literally don't know who you are without your pain. But there's something even more twisted: secondary gain. In clinical psychology, we see this constantly. Staying in the victim role has hidden rewards. If you're the victim, you receive attention, compassion, and validation. Poor thing, how much you've suffered. But the biggest prize is liberation from responsibility. If you're a victim, it's not your fault if you don't move forward. You don't have to take risks. You don't have to try. Your story is your perfect alibi for not facing the fear of failure. It's a golden cage. It protects you from criticism, but it prevents you from flying. Here's the hard truth for your 2026. Your trauma explains your behavior, but it doesn't justify it. What they did to you wasn't your fault, but healing it is your absolute responsibility. Nobody's going to come save you. Nobody's going to ask you for forgiveness with the sincerity you need to close the chapter. If you enter 2026 presenting yourself to the world through your wounds, "Hello, I'm Maria, and I'm afraid," you're instructing your brain to look for evidence that confirms this identity. It's the reticular activation system in action. If you label yourself as broken, your brain will filter reality to show you only what confirms that you're broken. It will ignore your strengths, your successes, and your possibilities. You need to change the script. You need to go from being the victim of the story to being the heroine who overcame the obstacle. You don't erase the past, but you change the title. You stop being a monument of pain and become a testimony of resilience. But be careful, because as soon as you try to let go of this identity, the second enemy will appear, and this one is much more subtle because it disguises itself as love. Suitcase 2. Eliminate cheap dopamine from external validation. 2. The second suitcase. Eliminate the cheap dopamine of external validation. We live in an era of emotional neediness disguised as hyperconnectivity. Your brain has a reward system, the mesolimbic circuit, controlled by a neurotransmitter called dopamine. Dopamine is not the molecule of joy, it's the molecule of desire and anticipation. It's what makes you seek. Evolutionarily, we sought the tribe's approval because being cast out meant death. Your brain interprets social rejection or indifference as a real physical threat. The same areas of the brain that process physical pain, the anterior cingulate cortex, are activated by social pain. The problem is we've hacked this system. We've created an environment where validation is instant, quantifiable, and addictive. Likes, comments, views, them responding quickly on WhatsApp, them telling you how pretty you are. I call this dopamine snacking. It's like eating powdered sugar with a spoon. It gives you an instant energy boost, but after 20 minutes you have a brutal crash that leaves you emptier, more anxious, and hungrier than before. If you enter 2026 measuring your worth by others' reactions, you're essentially a slave. Think coldly about it. If your mood on a Tuesday morning depends on whether that person saw your story or how many likes your photo got, you've handed over the remote control of your limbic system to external factors you can't control. This creates what we call in psychology an external locus of control. You become the chameleon. You start shaping your life, your face, your opinions, and your decisions, not based on what you are, but on what you believe sells best to the audience. Eliminate doing things to be seen. Eliminate saying yes when you want to say no, just to not disappoint. Eliminate the pathological need to be liked. You know what happens neurologically when you base your self-worth on external validation? You develop tolerance. At first 10 likes excited you, then you need 50, then 100, then you need them or that specific person to validate you. It's never enough. It's a bottomless barrel. You're trying to fill a spiritual void with digital data. And what's worse, you lose connection with yourself. Your inner compass becomes demagnetized. You no longer know what you like, you only know what gets likes. And a woman who doesn't know what she wants is a leaf in the wind, vulnerable to any manipulation. The year 2026 requires that you reclaim command. It requires what we call self-validation. It's the ability to look in the mirror and say, I did well, without anyone else knowing. It's the ability to upload a photo because you like it, and you couldn't care less if it has 3 likes. It's the ability to set a boundary and withstand the other person being upset. Knowing your peace is more important than their approval. Sounds liberating, doesn't it? Stop being the victim. Stop being the beggar for attention. But here the story takes an unexpected turn. You could eliminate these 2 things. You could heal your trauma, and you could leave social media tomorrow. And still you could fail spectacularly in 2026. Why? Well, because there's a third suitcase, a third silent enemy that's much more elusive than the previous 2. It's an enemy that disguises itself as virtue, as responsibility, as common sense. It's the reason why the most intelligent and capable people remain paralyzed for decades. Most people don't even know they have it. They think it's a valid life strategy, but in reality, it's the #1 killer of dreams. What I'm about to reveal to you will contradict everything you've been taught about preparing for the future. And it's possible that when you hear it, you'll feel enormous resistance because it means dismantling the biggest illusion of all, the illusion that you have time. We're reaching the point of no return. Are you ready to see what's really holding you back? Suitcase 3. Eliminate the waiting room mentality. We've arrived at the heart of the beast. You've let go of the victim role. You've stopped begging for applause. You feel lighter, don't you? And yet you're still standing in the same place. The car still won't start. Why? Because there's a third suitcase, and this is the most treacherous of all, because it doesn't look like a suitcase. It looks like caution. It looks like responsibility. It looks like preparation. Your rational brain, that prefrontal cortex you're so proud of, tells you you're intelligent, that you're analyzing the variables, that you're waiting for the strategic moment. Lie. It's a deadly ego trap. It's the most sophisticated sabotage mechanism that exists. 3. The third suitcase. Eliminate the waiting room mentality. Listen to me carefully, because this might hurt. You're living your life in draft mode. You've installed a limiting, devastating belief in your operating system that sounds like this. I'll be happy when I'll start my project when I have the perfect website. I'll start going out when I've lost these 5 kilos. I'll travel when I have more savings. I'll have that difficult conversation when I feel ready. Welcome to the waiting room. The waiting room is a psychological place, aseptic, comfortable and safe. There are no dangers there, no criticism, no failures, but also no life. It smells of anesthesia and dead dreams. From a neuroscientific perspective, this is explained by a phenomenon called paralysis by analysis and the fear of prediction errors. Your brain is a prediction machine. It constantly simulates possible futures. When you consider a real change for 2026, your brain simulates the scenarios, and since it has a negative survival bias, the scenario it projects to you is that of failure, ridicule, or pain. To avoid this potential pain, your mind invents a precondition. It creates an artificial obstacle you must overcome before you act. No, I can't go to the gym yet. First, I need the right clothes. I can't write the book yet. First, I need to take another writing course. Do you see the fraud? The brain convinces you that inaction is an active strategy. It makes you feel like you're doing something, worrying, planning, waiting, when in reality you're stuck. This creates what we call in psychology deferred life syndrome. You live in an eternal intermediate state. You believe your real life, the good one, the HD version of your existence, is waiting just around the corner until the stars align. When the kids grow up, when I retire, when the crisis is over, let me tell you something that will shake the foundations of your planning. The perfect moment doesn't exist. It's a unicorn. It's a cognitive hallucination. If you wait to feel ready to act, you'll wait until the day of your funeral. Biologically, confidence doesn't precede action. Confidence is the result of action. You'll never feel ready to jump into the void because your amygdala is designed to prevent you from doing so. Courage is not the absence of fear. It's the ability to act even though your brain is screaming at you to stop. The illusion of time. But there's something even darker about this waiting room mentality. It's the arrogance of believing you have time. Humans are the only animal that knows it will die, and yet live as if they were immortal. We behave as if 2026 were guaranteed, as if we had a signed contract with fate for 80 more years. We postpone the important, saying, I love you, forgiving, undertaking, traveling, because we assume there will be a better tomorrow to do it. Here, everything changes. Here, science meets spirituality. Imagine your life is an hourglass, but the top part is covered. You can't see how much sand is left. It could be 40 years left, or it could be 4 minutes. If you knew with absolute certainty that 2026 is your last year on Earth, would you still wait to lose those 5 kilos, to put on the bikini? Would you still wait to have more experience to start your idea? Would you still endure that job that drains your soul just because it's safe? No. You'd kick down the door of the waiting room. You'd run out. You'd live with savage intensity. You'd kiss with passion. You'd work with purpose. You'd laugh at what they'll say. Perfectionism, this need to have everything under control before you take the step, is not a pursuit of excellence. Perfectionism is fear with expensive shoes. It's insecurity disguised as high standards. You tell yourself, I'm just demanding. No, darling, you're scared. You're so afraid that your imperfect version will be rejected that you prefer not to show any version at all. You prefer to be a shining promise that never materializes rather than an imperfect reality that exposes itself to the world. But I'm going to give you a neurobiological fact you might not know that should alarm you. The brain has something called the Zeigarnik effect. This effect states that we remember incomplete tasks better than completed ones. If you have a dream, a project, or a desire that you constantly postpone, that stays open in your RAM. It's a browser tab you never close. That consumes a brutal amount of cognitive energy. It generates background anxiety, a constant white noise. It exhausts you, even though you're not doing anything. The fatigue you feel is not from what you're doing. It's from all that you're not doing, but know you should be doing. It's the weight of your unexpressed potential. Every day you spend in the waiting room, a part of you dies. Your neural connections of creativity atrophy. Your self-esteem sinks because deep down you know you're letting yourself down. You know you're settling. And there's nothing more painful for the human soul than the awareness of living below one's possibilities. The year 2026 is coming. And 2026 doesn't ask you to be perfect, it doesn't ask you to be ready, it doesn't ask you to have the complete map. The year 2026 only demands one thing from you: movement. The universe doesn't reward the most intelligent, it doesn't reward the most beautiful, it doesn't even reward the most talented. The universe rewards those who dare, it rewards the speed of implementation, it rewards those who jump and build wings while falling. Life doesn't begin when everything is in order. Life is chaos. Life is happening right now in the midst of chaos, in the midst of your doubts, in the midst of your imperfection. When you eliminate waiting, when you decide that today is the only place where you can live, everything changes. The fear of the future disappears because you're busy building it. Depression about the past dissolves because you're too focused on present action. The choice. Here's the climax of your transformation. You must choose. Either you choose the safety of the waiting room, where you watch life pass by through the glass, safe but empty, or you choose to enter the arena, vulnerable, imperfect, perhaps with fear, but alive. The dress rehearsal is over, the lights have come on, the curtain has risen, and there's nobody else on stage, just you. What will you do? Will you keep waiting for Godot? Or will you start acting? Because I assure you of one thing, the pain of failure is acute, but it passes. The pain of not having tried, the pain of what would have been if, is a slow poison that lasts forever. We're at the abyss. You have the 3 suitcases on the ground. Your victim identity, your need for applause, and your obsession with the perfect moment. They're there looking at you, they weigh tons, but you have free hands for the first time in years. Now we need a battle plan. We need to know how to walk without this weight, because your body is so used to the load that without caution you'll fly away uncontrollably. We need an elimination ritual. We need to translate all this philosophy into tangible actions you can do tomorrow morning before your brain puts up the excuses again. Are you ready for the solution? Breathe. We've gone through the emotional storm. We've faced the monsters. Now comes the pragmatic part. Motivation is like steam. It rises quickly but disappears in seconds if it's not condensed into discipline. The elimination protocol for 2026. The million-dollar question is, how the hell do you do this? How do you take away from the brain something it's been using for 20 years? You can't just say, I'm going to change and expect it to happen. Your brain has physical inertia. The neural connections of your old habits are reinforced steel cables. To break them, we must apply what I call self-directed neuroplasticity. We're not going to fight against your brain. We're going to constructively deceive it. We're going to use its own learning mechanisms to rewrite the code. Here is the elimination protocol for 2026. These are not suggestions. These are medical prescriptions for your soul. Step 1. Narrative rewriting to eliminate victim identity. Memory is not a fixed file, it's reconstructive. Every time you tell your story, you edit it. And here's the trick. Your brain doesn't distinguish well between reality and a vivid, repeated visualization. Until today, your narrative was I am X because Y happened to me, a cause-effect relationship that leaves you powerless. From today, you'll apply the cognitive bridge technique. You'll introduce a magic word into your internal vocabulary. But today, now. The exercise is this. You'll write your trauma story. Write it with all the pain. Get the poison out. And then you'll burn that paper, literally. It's an act of psychomagic that signals to your limbic brain that the event is finished. Immediately after, you'll write your new identity. Instead of, I'm insecure because my father left me, you'll reconfigure it to, I learned to survive alone because my father left, and now I use that strength to build my own empire. Do you see the difference that you go from being the passive object of the sentence to becoming the active subject? Neurologically, this changes your brain's activation. You go from activating the amygdala, fear, pain, to activating the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex, planning, control. Every time someone asks you who you are, it's forbidden to talk about your past misfortunes. That topic is taboo for you. You can only talk about your future projects. At first, you'll feel like an imposter. Your brain will say, liar. Hold on. It's cognitive dissonance. If you repeat the new narrative for 66 days, the average time to automate a habit, your neurons will start to believe the new story. You'll transform the lie into your new biological truth. Step 2, dopamine fasting to eliminate validation addiction. This will hurt, just as it hurts to quit sugar or tobacco. You need to resensitize your dopamine receptors. Right now, they're burned out. That's why you need constant stimulation. To recover, you need an abstinence period. I prescribe you a week of digital and social silence. That doesn't mean you go into a cave. It means you cut off the supply of external feedback. Zero metrics. Deactivate notifications for likes and views, or better yet, uninstall social media apps from your main phone for 7 days. Zero opinion polls. For 1 week, you're forbidden to ask, what do you think? Or, what should I do? You'll choose your clothes alone. You'll decide what you eat alone. You'll make decisions at work alone. When you feel the anxiety rise, and it will rise when you feel that urge to send the screenshot to your girlfriend's group so they tell you what to respond to that guy, pause. Feel the fear. Don't suppress it. Notice how your stomach burns. That burning is your brain screaming for its dose of validation. If you don't give it to it, if you withstand that wave of discomfort for 90 seconds, which is the average lifespan of a chemical emotion in the blood, your brain will learn something revolutionary. I didn't die. I didn't need anyone's approval, and I'm still alive. That's where real self-esteem is born. Muscular self-esteem, not theoretical. Every time you self-validate, you strengthen the internal reward circuit. You reclaim command. Step 3, massive, imperfect action to eliminate the waiting room. To combat paralysis by analysis, you don't need more planning. You need empirical evidence. Your brain believes you'll metaphorically die if you act without being ready. The only way to show it it's wrong is to act and survive the mistake. We'll apply Mel Robbins' 5-second rule combined with exposure therapy. Fear lives in the interval between impulse and action. If you have the idea to call that client and wait 10 seconds, your brain will start negotiating. Better tomorrow, I don't have a script, it's a bad time. You must act before your rational brain wakes up and sabotages you. Your task for today. Choose one thing, just one thing, that you're postponing for 2026. Starting the podcast, going to the gym, writing the first chapter. You'll do it intentionally badly. Yes, you heard right. I give you permission to do it mediocrely. Record the episode with your phone's audio. Go to the gym for just 10 minutes and then leave. Write one page full of spelling errors that...
The goal is not excellence. The goal is to break the static inertia. In physics, it takes much more energy to move a stationary train than to keep it moving once it's rolling. Your perfectionism is the handbrake. Doing it badly means releasing the brake.
Once you're in motion, you can correct the course. You can't steer a ship that's in port. By doing this, you generate a noradrenaline peak, alarm, followed by a bath of endogenous dopamine satisfaction because you delivered. Your brain registers, I did the scary thing and nothing bad happened. In fact, it feels good. That's how you reprogram the amygdala. Fear by fear, action by action. I know what you're thinking. This sounds exhausting. And it is. At first, changing your brain architecture consumes a lot of glucose. You'll feel tired, you'll have doubts, you'll want to return to your old patterns because they're comfortable. But here's the secret nobody tells you about 2026. The pain of discipline weighs grams. The pain of regret weighs tons. The decision to eliminate these three things is the choice of an acute and temporary pain of change instead of a chronic and dull pain of stagnation. You have the tools now. Rewrite your identity. You're the heroine, not the victim. Fast from validation. Your opinion is the only law. Act imperfectly. Do it today. Do it with fear. Do it badly. But do it now. Because in the end, transformation is not a miracle. Transformation is a decision repeated so many times that your old self no longer has a place to return to. One day, not with fireworks, not with applause, but quietly, almost imperceptibly, you will notice that the thoughts that once imprisoned you no longer have power. The chains will feel loose. The weight will feel foreign. And you will realize that you didn't become a new person. You simply stopped abandoning the person you always were beneath the noise. And when that moment comes, 2026 will not just be another year on the calendar. It will be your proof. Proof that you can rewire pain, rewrite identity, reclaim your voice, and step into a life that once felt unreachable. The universe responds to movement. And now you're in motion. So go. Take the first imperfect step. Let this be the year you finally rise.